Welcome to Martial Arts World Radio. I'm your host, Joseph Clark. Thanks for joining us. What makes a champion? How do we ensure that our successes do not become failures and that our losses become a path to victory? Our show asks these and many other candid questions through interviews with martial arts stars. Each week, in every show, we speak to different fighters from the UFC and world champion martial artists or kickboxing icons, many of whom have gone on to become stars of martial arts cinema. I have a book to bring to your attention. Check out the book, The Pocket Samurai, translated and edited by William Scott Wilson from Shambhala Publishing. It contains various philosophies on Bushido, from Asia's military elite between the medieval ages and the end of the 19th century. This week's inspirational quote is from world boxing champion Gentleman Jim Corbett and goes as follows: "To become a champion, fight just one more round." James Corbett, 1866 to 1933.
This is world champion Steve Nasty Anderson. You're listening to Martial Arts World Radio with Joseph Clark.
Justin Bruckmann is an MMA fighter with an impressive professional record, which includes fighting Georges Ste and David Loiseau, from whom he fought twice. He runs his own school, Bruckmann Academy of Martial Arts in Oshawa, Ontario, Canada, where he trains both amateurs and professional fighters in reality-based martial arts, building confidence, self-discipline, and promoting fitness in a relaxing family atmosphere. Justin, this is a privilege for us to have you as a guest. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell us about your fight against UFC great Georges Ste.
Yeah, that's always the question everyone wants to hear. That was a long time ago. It wasn't much of a fight. Honestly, I was the champion at the time, and George grabbed me and throttled me in about 3 minutes, and that was it. To me at the time, it was a huge tragedy, but it ended up being, a massive blessing for me in my career, and as a person too. It definitely strengthened me and made me really dedicate myself to my craft and improve.
How long ago was that?
Oh man, I think it was 2002, maybe 2003, so a long time ago. He went off to the UFC a couple fights after that, and then he was champion not too long after that as well.
And was that the only time you crossed paths with GSP?
In the ring, yeah, for sure. I mean, over the years, we bump into each other here and there. That's about it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, super nice guy, real humble, and always gracious when we do meet each other, for sure.
And David Loiseau was also a UFC competitor, and the documentary film, The Striking Truth, juxtaposes both his and Georges St. Pierre's fight careers. Now, you beat David once, and then he beat you once. Would you share your experiences fighting David?
You know what? It's both very valuable. My first fight against him was that was my first professional matchup ever, and he's such a good guy, and we're good friends. So it was really, it was a great experience to share it with him. And he got a few months later, he got me back. It was kind of weird. It was supposed to be a elimination tournament, but I think he may have been the favorite, so I beat him in the first round, and then all of a second we had the second round we had a rematch, you know what I mean? So I kind of got beat out of the tournament, but I think he was favored to win. He went on to win. I think he was favored to win, but that's nothing to do with me. That's the promoter's business. So you know what? Great experience, because I learned a lot from the loss and the win, and I took it, and it helped me throughout the rest of my life as well.
So those fights with, I'm sure you fought some really, really good fighters. How would you say the fight, for example, with Georges St. Pierre compared to some of the other fights in your professional career?
I think I said it earlier. My matchup with George wasn't a fight. He literally just beat me up. And if I fought George 100 times, he would just beat me 100 times. He's the greatest fighter to ever live, and I'm just happy that I got a chance to be in there with someone of that caliber, and who turned out to be such a success too, because that guy, he really deserves it. I'd like to say he's tough, but I never got to find out because it was one-sided. I fought tons and tons of tough guys, and I really got to test them and they test me. But George wasn't one of them because, like I said, it wasn't a fight.
And you were 7 wins, 3 losses in your professional career, correct?
Yep.
What was your toughest fight?
Two that stand out would have been a man named Phil Hughes I beat him for his Canadian championship, and he was just the toughest dude I've ever met in my life. He was just an awesome guy. He's passed away now. He died of cancer a few years ago, but I believe he was a university professor in music or something, and he just wanted to pick it up and try it, and he dedicated himself, and that guy was tough. I tried to murder him for 20 minutes, and he kept getting up with a smile, and I think it was a huge honor to fight that guy as well, just tough as nails. The other man I would say is I fought in Tokyo in 2004 with a guy named Yoshi Fukumoto, and same thing, that was an absolute battle, and I got so much respect for that guy because I put it on him, and he just kept coming back for more.
How was that Tokyo audience?
I would fight in Japan 1,000 times. It's so awesome there. It's the country, the people, and their appreciation for the martial arts is so much different than it is here. North Americans are a little less educated on the martial arts and the technique, and they're a little more. It's a little more sports entertainment here, a little more bloodthirsty. Over there, they really appreciate the honor and the tradition and the technique that comes along with a good fight.
Justin, what styles are you formally trained in?
I started my martial arts career in judo. I got my black belt in judo, and then I moved on, and I was cross-training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a second-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've been training kickboxing religiously for 3 or 4 years now as well, with some really great coaches. So I've been all over, and I've wrestled. I've been all over the place, but my heart's always Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's where I really fell in love with everything.
Now, you mentioned you've been all over the place. Would you share with us where some of your travels have gone to?
For martial arts, anywhere I've been in the world has been because of martial arts. I may have not gone to these countries and places to do martial arts, but it was martial arts that allowed me to travel all over the world. It changed my whole life. I never left my hometown until I put a gi on, and then next thing you know, I'm flying all over the planet. I got a lot of love for all the places I've been. I've got to train all over Canada and the States and in Japan while I was there, and just martial arts makes everything better because it just gives you this automatic connection and camaraderie with people all over the world. So I've been everywhere. I think I've hit 25 countries now, just traveling and just living life.
Have you fought in Europe?
Nope. I've never. When I go to Europe every couple of years, and I go for me. I don't want to do martial arts while I'm there. I'm there to eat and drink here, and that's it.
Did you fight in any other Asian countries besides Japan?
Nope. That was the only one. Thailand's big on my list. I'd like to get over there and train and experience the culture as well, but that's just something that hasn't lined up yet.
Do you have a particular memorable moment? I'm going to put you on the spot here, but in your professional career, do you have a particular memorable moment or experience that stands out?
Absolutely. When I have a lot of great crowning moments in my career as a competitor. I actually have a photograph of me winning my first championship against Phil Hughes years and years ago, and it's captured just perfectly. And that was the best night of my life because, to me, growing up in the way and from my background and just where I came from, I never accomplished anything before. I've never finished a goal, and I don't believe that I never expected much of myself, and I don't think anyone else ever did either. And so for me, it was my match against Phil Hughes when I had my hands raised. That was the best day, best moment of my entire life still.
How long was your amateur career before you went professional?
I'm old as dirt, man. So, but when I was competing, there was no amateur. We fought the very first UCC TKO or whatever it was. It was one of the first shows ever in Canada. There was no amateur. There was no nothing. We showed up, did our blood work, and got in the cage and got it done. That was it. I did some judo and jiu-jitsu and was competitive in that scene, but as far as MMA, there wasn't any. You just fought.
So, Justin, did you do any full contact or point karate or anything like that before you got into MMA?
Nope. No, not at all. I think everything was grappling based for me, wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu. So no formal boxing or kickboxing, anything. For me, boxing and kickboxing has only been the last few years. My first 2, 3 probably professional fights, I hit a punching bag. Back then, it was just tough guys who came from it was style versus style, you know what I mean? And there was no amateur then. It was just a bunch of tough guys. I did all sorts of fights, but nothing you should really talk about.
So Justin, tell us about your personal philosophy when it comes to training and preparing for a fight.
Me personally, man, you know what? You gotta have fun. For me, what I learned over the years is when it became a job and when it became stressful, I stopped growing and I stopped, like, as a fighter and as a person, become stagnant. I think you need to, especially for young people, you need to find a balance in your life where you can enjoy training all the time, and you can't do that unless you take time off the mats and have something else for yourself and spend time with your friends and family, because it's a grueling career. It's really hard emotionally, physically, financially. It's draining. So if you don't find a way early on in your career to balance that out with other things that you love, you're going to burn out really fast. Other than that, leave it on the mats, train hard, be conservative, and then training camp hits, you got to get it done. Surround yourself with positive people and work your ass off.
So you mentioned there a moment ago that it's a hard career emotionally. How so?
Man, the highs are extremely high and the lows are really low. Like, if you never heard that door lock or that bell ring, it can't really be explained to you. It's the greatest 15 minutes of your existence being in there. And so in everything you do, everything I did my whole life, all I've ever done is fight. Everything I've ever done is for that time in the cage or the ring. For the last 8 weeks, every sip of water, every bite of food, every time you get out of bed, every time you put on your shoes, all of that was just for that. And whether you win or lose, it doesn't matter. After that, it's over. And then you're sitting there wondering what to do next. And some people deal with it much better than others, but I know for me, like, the post-fight depression is always really horrible. Like, because you're so cranked and everything's so amazing, you've won, and everything was for that, and then it just stops. And then you fall off your diet, and you're partying with your buddies, and, you don't know what's coming next, what fight's coming next. You only made $200, you do it, you're broke, you know what I mean? So the highs are extremely high. When you win a fight, it's the best thing in the world. When you lose, it's like it's like you lost your best friend. It's really difficult to deal with, especially when your career comes to an end as well, which is something when you're young you don't think about. And when it happens, man, it's horrible. It's really, for me, especially, other people might be different, but it's been very difficult, still is.
It's interesting you mentioned that. So I had a colleague who ran an Ironman, and he said the same thing. He said that he trained, everything was focused. It was about that Ironman, and the training, it was the journey that was so rewarding. And then when the event was over, he said it was really depressing, and it took him quite a while to recover. And a lot of marathon runners talk about that too. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah,
I think there's a quote I read that it says, "A fighter dies twice," and that's I'm 100%. I agree with that. I mean, when my career was over, I didn't know it was over. I was injured in 2004, and I didn't know to the extent that I was until a little later on. So I didn't know my last fight was my last fight until later on when I realized I had a spinal injury and I wasn't coming back. And yeah, I died, man. Part of me died, and that's something. And then you got to figure out how to live your life after that and then fulfill it with other things, right? So,
Justin, how did the spinal injury occur?
Just career choice, just years and years of abuse and not taking care of my body. A lot of it was, like, I heard it in judo early on. I think I did like 4 days of judo, and I did tournament, like my first year of competition. And I think I hurt my neck the very first tournament I ever competed in, and I never addressed the issue because I was just young and stubborn and toughing it out. And it just got worse and worse. And then before it was over, there was not much left in me. Now I've had fused and have a degenerative disc disease and all sorts of stuff, right? So it's just, man, if you don't take care of yourself as a young fighter and as a young person, you're going to pay for it later, and that's exactly what happened to me. And that's my role now is to coach and to make sure that these young guys and girls are protected too, because someone needs to protect these guys from themselves.
Justin, what values do you try to instill in your students?
That's a hard question, because everyone that comes in the doors is a little bit different, and some of them already have all the values you need, and some of them teach me, So I personally believe work ethic is everything. That's one of the biggest things for me. You can be tough or gifted athletically, but if you don't have the work ethic and the heart, then you're going nowhere. Eventually, you're going to tank out. I think that's what my fighters show up first and leave last, and I think that's huge. Work ethic is everything, and a good and positive attitude all the time. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people come in the gym and they're negative, and like, you're never going to succeed like that. You need to come in, work hard, and be happy about it, man. It's an amazing opportunity for you to experience and see the world and compete and do amazing things.
Now, Justin, as I understand it, you had a recent challenge with your gym. Would you please tell us about that?
Yeah. I have a great job. I have the world's greatest job. It's just a little draining at some points, but my gym, I love it. My child, I built, I gave birth to, and I built it from nothing. And I walked in there almost 3 weeks ago, and the hot water tank rusted out and flooded absolutely everything. I lost everything. Yeah. So, I mean, every penny, everything I've ever done in my life was for this place, and I've been sitting here on my butt for 3 weeks now, waiting for insurance to come through. So, and all my students are so loyal and so awesome. Everyone's kind of sitting back and waiting and supporting me. And so, hopefully we're up and running in another 2 weeks, because it's been tough. Like, this is the busiest time of year, and I'm not selling any memberships, so it's pretty scary stuff.
It is tough. I'm sorry to hear about the flood, and I do hope that they do get you up in time. I'm glad to hear that you're insured, but yeah, that's an unfortunate event, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You know what, though? It's been, for me, it's been a blessing in disguise, and it really, I'm going to build a new facility. I'm going to make it run bigger and better than ever. And, it's given me a real eye-opener on how much my community cares for me. Like, the phone calls and emails and support from, like, everywhere, not just where I live in Oshawa and, like, teammates, but other schools and people that I don't even normally talk to, like, have been, helpful, like hundreds and hundreds of emails and phone calls, telling me how much I've helped the community want to get back and stuff like that. So it's been, as much as this sucks, this whole thing has happened, I feel a lot of love, and I'm really fortunate that I've got to, kind of see where I am in the community and the world, that the things that I'm doing are coming back to me,
Well, Justin, that kind of response from the community reflects on you, and it says something about you and about your club. Now, these interviews are a lot like MMA fights. They're a lot of fun, and they go by way too quickly. Justin, we must wrap up our interview. However, we wish you the best of luck and success with your gym, and congratulations on your MMA career.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me. I love doing this stuff, so if anything comes up again, you let me know. I'll be right here.
Oh, you're always welcome. Thanks again.
All right, have a great night. Thanks a lot.
This has been an interview with MMA fighter and a terrific guy, Justin Bruckmann.
This is UFC fighter Jason Sago. You are now listening to Martial Arts World Radio with Joseph Clark.
Welcome back to Martial Arts World Radio. For those of you listening to us while on your phones, tablets, or laptops, be sure to check out www.worldblackbelt.com, the world's foremost martial arts online community. Also, Google the book 21st Century Perspectives on Martial Arts, or go to Amazon and do a search for 21st Century Perspectives on Martial Arts. I checked out a website called Ranker.com last weekend to see what they have listed as the top MMA movies out of 49,000 votes. Here is what fans voted as the top MMA movies. Number 1, Warrior, starring Tom Hardy and Nick Nolte. Number 2, Never Back Down, starring Amber Heard and Evan Peters. And number 3, Undisputed 2, Last Man Standing, starring Michael J. White. Now, what I found interesting about this is that Enter the Dragon and Bloodsport were in the top 7, despite the fact that this was not the martial arts movie rankings, but the MMA mixed martial arts movie rankings. So Enter the Dragon and Bloodsport still made the top 7 of MMA movies. And of course, they're in the top 3 of the all-time greatest martial art movies. So check out Ranker.com. Some interesting information there.
This is Olivier Gruner. You are listening to Martial Arts World Radio with Joseph Clark.
Martial arts film star Jalal Merhi began his martial arts instruction in Shotokan karate and kung fu. After obtaining the rank of Sifu, he started his own kung fu school and hosted several martial arts competitions. In the late 1980s, Jalal started his own production company, leading to his producing over 30 films, including the films Tiger Claws, Expect No Mercy, Expect to Die, The Circuit, and many other films. Jalal starred in many of his movies alongside co-stars such as Bolo Yeung, Cynthia Rothrock, Billy Blanks, David Carradine, Olivier Gruner, and Lauren Avedon. Jalal, beginning with the end in mind, what current projects are you embarked on?
We're doing right now the Conspiracy Show. We're in our third season in Canada and our first season in the U.S. with Discovery in the U.S. It's called Destination America channel owned by Discovery. And we deal with all kinds of conspiracies. I produce and direct this show, and my company, Film One, produces the product.
Terrific. Congratulations. And how many television series has Film One produced so far?
This is the second one that runs into multi-season. So we have now approximately 45 episodes of that. And we did another one with Fox at the U.S. It's called Soccer Dreams. I also produce and direct that one. But also we've done a lot of documentaries recently. But right now I'm focusing quite a bit on TV since it keeps the production always constant.
Everybody likes a good conspiracy show. How many films has Film One produced?
We've done around, I think, 21.
21 films.
Yeah.
And how many years in the business exactly?
We started our first project in 89, and it took us, first project took the longest, took us till 91, but since then, so I would say 25, this is our 25th year, yeah.
And I mean, that is very exceptional for an independent film company in Canada to produce so many films, be in business for so long, and produce series as well for television. That's very active.
It's different than the way other people do it. That's the main reason why we're still around. And also, before I came to this business, I was a businessman too. I had a chain of jewelry stores and a manufacturer. So I deal with it as a film business, just the way it sounds. I don't deal with it only as an artist. So you gotta separate both. And if you deal with it as a film business, and at the same time hire the right artist to do the artistic part, you should be able to survive. Plus, you have to learn about the distribution. That's the key part, is distribution.
And would you say that your approach to film production as a business is unorthodox?
I would say totally. Different than what everybody else planned it, and different what anybody else done before. What we did, we did not rely on any Canadian or telefilm. For our 20 films, we never went or tried or qualified for telefilm funding. So, but what we got is international distribution. We built an international market more than anybody else. And this is the way I've always did it. And that's the reason why I'm still in business too, because if you want to wait for somebody to approve your product or to approve your application, sometimes you could go out of business before.
Mm-hmm. Jalal, would you be able to name some of the stars you've worked with?
You're thinking right now people who might know, from David Carradine to James Hong to, from Canada, many Canadians that are well known that are there, David Bradley, Billy Blanks, Bolo Yeung from Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. He's the big guy there. Al Waxman in Canada, and many, many others just to come. You've worked with me on a couple of films, so you should know some of them too.
And Jalal, so Bolo Yeung, for example, of course, I believe one of the first films that I caught that you produced many, many moons ago was Tiger Claws.
Yes.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Bolo was in Tiger Claws.
Yes, he was. Definitely. I mean, Tiger Claws 1 is very close to my heart. It's my second film, although it came out first, because my first film, I was not able to release, although Cineplex in Canada bought it, but I was not able to release. But the second film, Tiger Claws, is the one what gave me notoriety worldwide, and the Universal Studios picked it up and ordered 4 more of the same. And the moment Universal picked it up, everybody followed. They do like to, first you need the big boys to do it, and if they do it, people feel that, this must be good. Otherwise, why would Universal touch it? Tiger Claws is very close to my heart. I mean, although looking at it right now, I say, well, you know what, I could have done this, could have done that, but it's a classic worldwide.
And when we say the big boys picked it up, you're talking theatrical release, correct?
Yes, we did get theatrical release, definitely in many, many countries all over the world. And also a great, at that time it was VHS release. We were a great VHS release, it was everywhere.
And now, something that I find interesting here, Bolo Yeung, for example, as a co-star, as you mentioned, Bolo Yeung acted opposite Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. He acted opposite Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport. This is no small name when it comes to an internationally recognized star for a martial art film.
Bolo's an amazing person as a person himself. He's very spiritual. He's a great martial artist. I met him in Hong Kong, actually, at Jackie Chan's place, and while I was doing my first film. And he was very helpful in everything. I mean, he made things easy. He's quietly wise on the side, and I benefited a lot from his knowledge. And same time, he respects people who are trying. He knew that I was new, and but he liked the vision I had, and he gave me the best he could give for the days we had him here. So it worked out well.
Now, there's an origin story, I believe, to your entry into the film business and to Film One. And that story is that you had a family jewelry business, or an extension of your family jewelry business, and I believe you sold it in order to finance the company, or at least finance your production. Could you share that story with us?
I built the film business. I built in Toronto, in Canada, and mainly in Toronto and suburb, was something I built on my own. My family, the film business we had, the jewelry business we had, is based in Brazil mainly, where I was born originally. But I came in here alone, and I wanted to be alone. Always I was independent. I wanted to prove I could do it on my own. So I built up a nice film business, and apparently I must have served a niche that was missing in the market. Mm-hmm. And we did Wholesale to Republic type of setup, and we did very well. But I studied film initially, and I always loved film. So I'm the type of person that if I'm not very excited about what I do, I can't do it. So I changed my business the moment I felt that it's time to move on. And everyone thought I was crazy, but I actually turned around, sold my share in a building downtown Toronto, sold my stores, my merchandise, put all the money together, and bought a studio in Donlands in East York, old theater, turned it to a studio, invested a lot of money in it, and that's it. I never looked back since.
And so you purchased the Donlands Theater, the movie theater.
Yes.
And that became your headquarters for Film One, your film studio.
Yes, for 11 years.
And I believe the Donlands Theater also was a location for some of your films.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the interior we turned into a studio. We used the exterior a couple of times, so it doesn't, we don't want to use it all the time, but from the back or the front, it had a very good character to it. So it was a location. And it's a place that actually has other history, too, that place. Other Canadian celebrities actually worked there as ushers from East York. But I'm not going to go into that right now. So the place had great vibes to it.
Jalal, you are a martial artist.
Yes. And
would you share with us how you got your start in martial arts and what style of martial art you studied?
I started at age 11. My brother was doing taekwondo, and so I was learning from him. Then I wanted to go and learn myself, but where we were living, there was no, where we moved that year, by the time I was 15, there was no Taekwondo place, so I went into Karate JKA. So I learned Japanese Karate, and I got into brown belt with that. Then I moved to Toronto, and in Toronto I met some people, as just first year I was here, first few months, 2 months, I met some people, they were jogging in Hyde Park, and they had Kung Fu written on their T-shirts, and to me my dream was always Kung Fu, thinking of Bruce Lee. So I chased them, I ran after them, and I chatted with them, and I joined their Kung Fu club. And that's where I really excelled, because I had the base, and Kung Fu was my dream, and mainly how to use ancient weapons. Mm-hmm. And that's how I excelled in martial arts. To me, when I do something, I like to give it my all, and I did give it my all. And it's been good since then. I mean, I've done very well in the tournament circuit at that time. You're talking about, the late 70s, early 80s. And eventually I had my own tournament where people came in, and I gave as a prize a diamond ring, which nobody was giving. Usually people were giving just trophies. So I had an amazing turnout by big stars, and one of them is Billy Blanks, the typo guy, or Nasty Anderson, Toki Hill. Some of the top world martial artists from the U.S. were coming up too, because of the prize and the money that we're getting.
And Billy Blanks, of course, starred in, I believe, at least one of your films, or did he star in more than one?
3 of them. I gave him his first starring roles, actually, and second and third. Talons of the Eagle, first starring role, TC 2000, and then Expect No Mercy, and since then he's done very well for himself, and worked together with him on other things. We're still working. I was with him last week in California, and we're trying to do something else too right now.
Do you have any martial arts idols of your own?
As a martial arts person, I believe in the artistic part of martial art, not just, put them in the corner and smack their head till blood comes out. I cannot watch those type of martial arts. So Bruce Lee is an artist, was an artist, and is an idol to me, looking at his moves, looking the way he worked out. So I think he's the one that I looked up to most.
And did you cast yourself in all of your productions, or do you have productions that you've produced where you were not in front of the camera?
No. To me, initially I did. Initially I was cast by somebody else. That's how I turned the corner. How I got into, sometimes you need a little nudge. Mm-hmm. I was in a tournament where I won the Grand Championships, I would say in mid-'80s, I think it was. And a producer walked in to me at the end of the tournament and asked me if I'll be interested to be in films. To me, it was like, what? Where did this? So it was something, a dream came through. And he told me who he is. He was a known producer. And then I was training with him for a while. But that film itself, after training for a few months, like many films, sometimes he couldn't get the final funding for it. He had half the money. So it just was falling apart. So I told him, meet me in my office downtown, let's chat. He came to my office. That's when he realized I had money. First he thought I'm just a martial artist, didn't know how to jewelry business. And like a typical producer, now he's asking me to put some money in film business. So this is how gradually, I did not end up putting money with him right away, but I did spend money with him and pay his tickets to travel to LA, but I said, if I go with you. And that's how I start getting to meet people. I actually bought my way into it by paying to him because I didn't want to jump into anything blindly. But since then, I would say after the first 11 or 12, I stopped being in the films myself. Sorry, I have 13 that I'm starring in. The rest, I'm not. It's just I felt more comfortable being behind the camera than in front of it. Just because of my family, mainly. I have kids, and things changed in my life.
Mm-hmm. What was the motivation to get into film?
What was was the motivation?
Yeah, why film? Like, I understand that the opportunity presented itself, but had you ever had aspirations, before that to be an actor or to be a producer in film?
Producer, yes. Actor, I never saw myself, but when somebody else picked me, so suddenly I think certain ego gets in the way and plays a role. And then when Universal picked up a film I was in, so now there's a reason to be there. So that's why I did it. They were selling. Plus, I had to hire somebody. So I did initially interview many people to do the role, but the good actors did not know martial arts, and good martial artists could not act. A few of them that I brought, and I was, at the time, from the respectable martial artists. So then this is when actually Steve Monder, one of my students in martial arts, because I always had a martial arts school that I would teach in the evening, he said, "Why not you?" He said, "I'm watching you compete, why not you?" And he was actually the person who wrote Tiger Claws. He was a film student at York University at the time, and he finished. So he wrote actually most of the first 5-6 scripts himself, Steve Monder.
Jalal, we're going to take a quick break in just a moment, but one final question before we do. Do you get publicly recognized? Do you have people ask you for autographs or cell phone pictures?
I still get a bit of that, but in the 90s I got it a lot, and to a point that was bothersome. But also in the 90s, early 90s specifically, till the end of 90s almost, my films were playing all the time on all pay channels. My films were in every DVD shop. And I found that I was being recognized mainly by younger generation at the time and by blue-collar workers quite a bit. That sometimes it became very bothersome when people come and say, "Hey, hi, how are you doing, Jalal?" And you say, "Fine," and then you look, do I know the person? And then I could not take my kids places. I could not go in public as much because I realized, and that's one of the main reasons why also I stopped being in front of the camera. I realized I was not made to be. I just, some people live on notoriety. I did not. I realized I can't.
This is Mark Hebscher, and you're listening to Joseph Clark on Martial Arts World Radio.
This has been an interview with martial arts cinema star Jalal Merhi. Now on the line, we have Bob Wall, who's international martial arts world champion, cinema star, and of course co-star of Enter the Dragon, as well as several other Bruce Lee films and Chuck Norris films. Bob, welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure. It's good to hear your voice again.
Well, it's good to have you back again. You're a regular.
Well, that's a good thing. But since I'm on with the greatest interviewer in all of Canada and probably North America and possibly the world.
Oh, wow. Well,
great interviews, by the way. Congratulations.
Well, I do appreciate that. Now, we had an interesting discussion that you had shared with me, and I know you've had this discussion with Chuck Norris as well, and it had to do with martial arts being part of school curriculum or being part of physical education curriculum. It is in other countries, some other countries, Asian countries, it is mandatory training. How do you feel about that?
Chuck and I both believe that it should be mandatory training because, we've had so many of these ridiculous idiot left-wingers taking prayer out of school, taking prayer off of, they're after Tebow because he's playing, after a play in football. We need the things that give people respect, and we need things in school that make young people feel good about themselves. And as Francois Fenelon said, if a person at peace with himself is at peace with the fellow man. So we can go to, say, these violent protesters at a Donald Trump rally. They have no respect for themselves or for Donald Trump or for Hillary Clinton or anybody else. What happened to free speech? What happened to respect? And so that's what Chuck Norris and I believe, my good friend after 52 years, it's about respect. It's about feeling good about yourself. Because if you feel good about yourself, you feel good about your fellow man. It's all this hate and this lack of civil discourse that's creating so much havoc on society. So we need to start training these youngsters early on with the huge advantages of respect. I roll with the greatest martial artists in my lifetime at 77 and have, well over 65 years of martial arts training. And the greatest, toughest people on earth, men and women, are the most respectful, kindest, nicest people. Just don't grab their mate's tush, don't threaten their children, and do not mess with their pet. Then you're going to see a side of them you're probably going to die for. But short of that, they're the nicest people. It's the bullies. It's the mid-range ding-dongs who don't feel good about themselves. So that's why Chuck Norris and I feel so passionate. And he's proved it for over 20 years in Texas. He's got thousands of students. And what started as Kick Drugs Out of America, now shortened to Kickstart, because he believes he's kickstarting these people for life. So yes, I'm very passionate. I believe martial arts should be mandatory in schools from the beginning to the end.
So, Bob, when you were running your own school, and when you and Chuck were partners in running your schools, before you would promote a student, was it as much about them demonstrating certain aspects of their character as it was about their prowess as a martial artist before they could get graduated to another belt?
More so, because we fail people at red belt, which is equal to brown belt in some systems, their test before black belt, and they had many times we'd see amazing physical skills, but no character. You're beating up smaller people, little people, immoral acts, drug use, disgracing or disrespecting your country, your parents, all these basics that are important to becoming a good human being. So absolutely, yes, we would fail them a lot quicker for character issues than physical deficiencies, because they can all be overcome.
Now, you were a world champion martial artist. You had full contact karate. You're a pioneer in full contact, in fact. When you were fighting against these tough competitors and competing for world titles, would you see aspects of character that came out made a difference in those competitors and some of those people who you were fighting in those situations?
Oh, absolutely. The best of the best always have great character. The Chuck Norrises, the Pat Burlesons, the Jim Harrisons. I mean, you could just go on and on. The Benny Urquidez's. You could just go on and on and on and on. The greatest martial artists, the greatest competitors were always the nicest people, followed the rules, had great character, and yes, so I've been blessed because I've gotten to know the greatest martial artists on the planet, in my 60-plus years in the martial arts. And it just overwhelms you when you realize that the best are the best as human beings.
Yes. Speaking of which, I mean, you've been friends with Chuck Norris now a good portion of your life. You've been business partners with Chuck Norris. He was an incredible competitor. Has he been an inspiration for you?
Oh, absolutely. We became partners, and I was a judo black belt. I was Gene LaBelle's black belt. I'm more of a grappler, street fighter kind of a guy, and start punching and kicking relatively late to my martial arts career. So in 61, 62, that was 4 or 5 years after I started, I was starting to punch and kick. So when I met Carlos, Chuck's real name, as you know, Chuck's a nickname, he's half Indian, half Cherokee Indian, half Irish. And although he doesn't look like a Carlos with green eyes and blonde hair, but he was always an inspiration because I started watching him in 1964, and he lost big tournament up in Seattle. And he took 3 students with him. They all won. In fact, one of his red belts beat Mike Stone, who's never been defeated in black belt competition. And I asked Mike, I said, what you lost? He said, well, that was a grand champion. Oh, I get it. Okay. So a lot of people that want to change the facts, pretty hard to do. But I watched how amazingly kind he was in losing, and how encouraging he was and complimentary to his 3 students who won. And but it was point fighting, and he really didn't lose, but he had to accept it. And that was one of the many reasons that we started focusing on full contact and ultimately kickboxing and ultimately MMA, because if you could take it out of the judge's hands, that was a much healthier thing. But yeah, I watched him down. I watched him up. I watched him win his first title in 1965 against Ron Martini. And he was equally gracious in winning as losing. Chuck Norris is just one of the best humans ever put on this planet. And he's just a kind, intelligent, moral, godly, Christian man. He's just such a good man. I've been so blessed. When we became partners, part of the glue was that we were egoless. I knew he was a better karate guy, which is what we were selling, and he knew I was a better businessman. And so we never had a contract except an oral one. Okay, Carlos, you're the boss on the mat because you're the better karate guy. And trust me, I spent over 50 years trying to get as good as him, and I was always from 2 feet to 1 inch behind.
Mm-hmm.
He's just an amazing martial artist. But character, oh my gosh, this guy is just amazing. He's a tremendous man, and I'm so proud of him and happy for his success financially and in his life.
Now, as a friend of Bruce Lee's, for example, you would have seen this as well in how he ran his school, because as I understand it, he would teach anybody of any race at a time when a lot of martial arts schools were quite racist. Was that correct?
Oh, absolutely. It was huge racism. I mean, I myself, at 15, I started going up. I was in San Jose, California. I fly out to San Francisco, which is 30 or 40 minutes away at that time. And all I knew was judo and kung fu at that time. Wrestling, judo, and kung fu. Because of Teddy Roosevelt being a black belt in judo. We got a lot of press. But I found at least 15 Kun's Chinese kung fu schools. Oh, him no, him gone, no here. And years later, when I explained to Bruce, he said, oh, yeah, you know, that was prejudice. You're white, but that was prejudice. Now you know how blacks in America feel, and maybe some Asians. He said, Chinese do not teach non-Chinese. And so he said that was just their form of prejudge. But his first student was black. His best friend was Japanese. He was 1/8 German. And so he understood, as Carlos Chuck Norris understood, racism up close and personal.
Yes.
You're Eurasian or you're half Indian, and they got it. They got it early and overcame it, and became brilliant people. And Bruce, I just loved him. He was another wonderful, fabulous human, kind, brilliant, funny, bright, hardworking. I mean, he just had it all.
Now, Bob, we're going to wrap up. It's a short one here today, but I can't thank you enough for joining us as you did. This has been an interview with martial arts legend Bob Wall. Bob, thank you.
It's been my pleasure. You really do a great show. I love your perspective on your interviews. The one you did with Vinny Ortiz was outstanding, but all of them are. You ask them very interesting questions, and you get into a perspective. I'm very proud of you and happy to be here.
Oh, thanks very much. It's a privilege to have you on the show, and we look forward to having you back real soon. Thanks again, Bob.
Blessings, Joseph Clark.
And blessings to you, too.
This is Benny the Jet Yukitis. You are listening to Joseph Clark.
Kung Fu Grandmaster Sifu Mo Chao, a pioneer in the Kung Fu community. He established his own Kung Fu club and is one of the first Kung Fu stylists to compete in open karate martial arts championships, capturing numerous first-place finishes. He's also a pioneer in the martial arts cinema business, and he has appeared in numerous martial arts films and was an integral part of the television series Kung Fu The Legend Continues with David Carradine. Sifu Mo Chao's feedback was, martial artists today are for the most part made up of improved, sophisticated, dedicated individuals. I have not adapted my style, he says. I've stayed pure as an instructor. Adaptation applies more to tournament fighters. In cinema today, Chinese arts are more relevant than ever. Mo Chao stated, most stunt coordinators learn Chinese arts. It's beautiful, it's beauty, it's impressive on the big screen, and therefore it has become more predominant in the choreography. The reason you do not see Kung Fu stylists in the UFC, he stated, is that MMA is straightforward, knock them out. Anything goes. MMA is made up of basic rudimentary techniques, no finesse. Mo Chao's prediction for the future is that every style is getting combined. Martial arts is becoming more and more nonpartisan. There will be less and less purity of styles. Martial arts schools are becoming a melting pot. It's a good thing, he says. For future generations, Mo Chao hopes that they will be true to themselves and be loyal to the roots of their art. Respect it. Give credit where it's due. He started competing over 45 years ago. However, he states, I don't dwell on the past. I reflect, but I look forward. I encourage martial artists to expand their knowledge. Don't get stuck in one spot. Always evolve. Keep developing. Modern wisdom from Sifu Mo Chow. Be sure to check us out at our website at www.mawradio.com or at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube by following Martial Arts World Radio. Thank you for listening. I'm Joseph Clark, wishing you safe travels.